She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate.
Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to talk about some new things that I found out in the Lori Vallow case, the Chad Daybell case. It seems to be a case where things keep coming out and everything that comes out is just more insane than anything we've heard of before. I do want to send a quick message out to you guys. We are talking about true crime cases here. We're going on as if life is normal. But life currently is not normal for me, for you, for anybody. And just the realization of that, it can be very heavy. It can be very heavy on us. It's very heavy on me. And I really do actually appreciate having these videos to put together because it gives me a distraction from what's happening in our world today. So hopefully these videos provide you a distraction as well. It's very important right now that we just try to feel as normal as possible. Even though everything is crazy, we need to just keep our day-to-day lives as normal as we possibly can. Otherwise, we'll all go crazy. On that note, I would like to have a word from our sponsor, and our sponsor today is June's Journey. I did a sponsored video for June's Journey, oh my god, maybe like a year ago at this point, and I have been playing it steadily ever since. Right now, we're kind of stuck in a place where we have to figure out things we can do inside, alone, or with the small amount of people we've been, forced to be in isolation with. And June's Journey has been a savior for me, and it was always a game I went to in times when I just wanted to relax, when I still wanted to use critical thinking and I wanted to use my brain, but I didn't want to think about anything real or anything scary. June's Journey is a hidden object mystery game set in the 1920s. It's a vintage murder mystery where you're responsible for being a detective and finding hidden objects in hundreds of beautifully colored and carefully painted scenes. It challenges you in a way where you're still using your brain, you're putting your sense of observation to the test, keeping your mind fresh, but it's also allowing you to relax. Each new scene takes you further through a thrilling murder mystery story set in the 1920s that sets the main protagonist, June Parker, in a quest to solve the murder of her sister and uncover her family's many secrets. June also has a knack for getting into tricky situations and solving her friends' problems in her own witty way. I love June's Journey because it gives my brain the break that it needs. A lot of you have suggested that I try to meditate, and I love meditating, but when you have two young children around, it's hard to meditate because you can't focus on that present moment. It's just very, very difficult for anybody, adult or child, to focus on the present moment when so much is happening around us. So this is actually a fun game that I like to play with Aiden and Bella. Bella's still a little young for it. She tries to help, but me and Aiden get really into it, and we've been playing it every night before bed for about 20 minutes just to relax ourselves, have a little fun together, and chill out. On top of that, we're all here because we enjoy a good mystery, and we like trying to solve it. And June's Journey gives you the opportunity to solve a really thrilling mystery without having to worry that there's real people involved. It is available for free download on mobile devices, Android and iOS. You can also download it through your desktop through Amazon or Facebook. It's completely free, it's completely fun, and there's over 3 million people currently playing June's Journey, and they love it. So if you're interested in downloading it and checking it out, the link is in the description box. As always, supporting the sponsors of this channel supports the channel and allows me to keep bringing you content in these very uncertain times where none of us know what's happening. And as always, I would never accept a sponsor or ever tell you guys that I like something when I don't. I love June's Journey. Aiden loves June's Journey. We've been having a great time with it, and I've been playing it now for about a year. So if you're interested, check out the description box. Let's get on with the video. Okay, so Lori Vallow is currently in the Madison County Jail, and she's been charged with 2 felony counts of desertion and non-support of dependent children, as well as misdemeanors involving resisting or obstructing officers, criminal solicitation to commit a crime, and contempt of court. Her bail has been set at $1 million, and she started off with 3 lawyers, but now she only has 1. Her 3 lawyers were Mark Means, Edwina Alcox, and Brian Webb, but Alcox and Means stepped down from her legal team last Friday, and they didn't give their reasons why. The original judge presiding over the case also recused himself at the request of Lori Vallow and her counsel, and we weren't given a reason for that either. In the motion for leave to withdraw as counsel, which was filed on March 19th, it was stated that good cause exists for granting this motion based upon the standards set forth in the Idaho Criminal Rules and Idaho Rules of Professional Conduct. But counsel cannot reveal more information than this without disclosing privileged attorney-client communication. Why would her 2 lawyers remove themselves from her case, a case that could potentially make them a household name like Casey Anthony did for Jose Baez? Let's theorize. One reason could be that Rexburg, it's a small town, and it was reported also that Lori Vallow was unable to find any bondsmen or bonds companies who were willing to help her out. So the 2 lawyers who took themselves out of the case, they could just be concerned for their reputation locally. They might worry that their affiliation with Lori Vallow could prevent them from getting jobs in the future. Or maybe once they started representing her and talking to her and they figured out that the bigger picture, the broader context of this case could possibly turn into something more than like a desertion case, they decided it wasn't something they wanted to be a part of. Or they could just be scared, considering that those who are in Lori Vallow's life drop like flies. No one wants to mess with a crazy cult that they don't know anything about. They don't know how many people are involved or who these people even are. Now, originally, her bond had been set at $5 million, but her lawyers argued that this was a violation of her constitutional rights. And I know if you've seen any footage of Lori in court, one thing is going to stick out to you. Her facial expressions while all this is happening, they're always the same. Either this strange, serene peacefulness or a look of just smug self-satisfaction. During the trial, to talk about reducing the bond from $5 million to $10,000, Edwina Alcox, who was still on Lori's legal team, argued that Lori was presumed innocent and the bail was excessive. It was basically the functional equivalent of holding Lori without bond. Check out this clip.
Lori is presumed innocent as she stands before the court today. The fact that she is presumed innocent is not a loose guideline. It's a foundational principle of the American criminal justice system. Under both the 8th Amendment to the United States Constitution and Article 1, Section 6 of the Idaho Constitution, excessive bail is prohibited. Judge, you are the gatekeeper in this case. You're the guardian of the presumption of innocence and the constitutional rights afforded to Lori. This is not a court of public opinion. This is a court of law. And are we going to let our citizens' rights be dictated by what appears in the media? Bail must be set in an amount that assures Lori's appearance in court.
In my opinion, in Lori Vallow's case, a $5 million bond was not excessive or unreasonable for many reasons. She lied to law enforcement since the moment that, she came on their radar. And as soon as she knew that they were looking for her kids, she ran off to Hawaii. So she has a history of being dishonest and being a flight risk on top of that, and she's still not cooperating with the court in order to reveal the location of her children. And like I said, Lori's face throughout this has been so self-righteous, so cocky, so punchable. Like, this whole trial was just a waste of her time. She shouldn't be sitting in court answering where her kids are. She should be out in the world gathering souls. And let's talk about that, the soul gathering, or the gatherer. It appears that Lori was on the radar of the FBI before we were even aware of it. Fox 10 Phoenix obtained new emails that show the FBI was looking into Lori Vallow since early in December of 2019, just a week after the welfare check done on JJ by the Rexburg PD. It appears that the FBI listened to hours and hours of podcast content, which included Lori and 2 other individuals, a man named Jason Mao and a woman named Melanie Gibb. Jason Mao is a retired police officer, author, public speaker, and a spokesperson who advocates for police officers who have PTSD. He claimed during one of these podcasts that he met Lori at Temple and that there was an instant connection between them. He claimed as soon as he saw her, he knew she was a gatherer, and he had to introduce her to Melanie Gibb. One of the emails from an FBI analyst says, quote, "The twists keep coming." I'm in the middle of a podcast from December of 2018 where Lori mentions how suffering leads to salvation, and that even though she doesn't want to see her kids suffer, she understands they have to in order to see the light. According to Lori, she had received a message from God or the other side that had instructed her to go to that temple that day because someone there needed her. She said the messages don't give her specifics, just that she was sent to the place to get a message to someone else. She said, quote, "I feel like I work for the Lord. I ask him who he needs me to go to." Now, this man, Jason Mao, claims that he hit rock bottom at one point in his life. He had gotten beat up in an alleyway. He'd lost his ability to walk. He had to go through physical therapy. And as a result of this, his wife left him. He lost his job, his home, everything. And he was left with two options, victory or death. As a result, he developed this warrior ethos, which includes a promise to serve a cause greater than oneself, be accountable for one's community, one's family, and one's actions, to blame no one for one's faults, and to give thanks for one's abilities. It also says that your mind is the most powerful weapon, and a warrior will train to oppose evil in any and all forms. And when the end comes, I will sing my warrior song and go to my reward with honor and dignity. Now, I was able to listen to one of these podcasts, and Jason and Melanie pretty much, to me, in my opinion, they sound more like traditional LDS. Yes, they believe in the end times and all of that stuff, but they don't seem to be going down the same drastic path that Lori has. Melanie even says at one point in this podcast that you really can't decide for your husband or your wife, your parents, or your kids, essentially meaning everyone has that free will to decide what they want to do, what they want to believe in, and all you can do is control your own spiritual path, and your loved ones and the people in your life, they have to find theirs separate from you. But Melanie Gibb was also a person that was asked by Lori Vallow to lie to the police about the location of JJ. According to Rexburg detectives, they went to Lori Vallow's condo on November 26th, and they found Chad Daybell and Alex Cox there. Now remember, Chad Daybell is Lori's husband, her fifth husband, and Alex Cox was Lori's brother who shot her husband, her fourth husband, Charles Vallow, and then he himself died mysteriously later. Now, according to the police, Chad acted as if he didn't know Lori that well. He claimed he didn't even know her phone number. And Alex told the police that JJ was with Kay Woodcock, which wasn't true since the Woodcocks are the ones who had requested the welfare check to begin with. Finally, Chad Daybell admitted that he did have Lori's number after all, but he also said that the last time he'd seen JJ was in October. So the police did call Lori on her cell phone, and she told them that JJ was with a friend of hers, a woman named Melanie Gibb, who lived in Arizona. When the police tried to call, Melanie didn't answer her phone, and Lori claimed it was because Melanie and JJ had gone to a movie to see Frozen 2. When police in Gilbert, Arizona finally did speak to Melanie, she confessed that that wasn't true. JJ wasn't with her, he had never been with her, and that Lori and Chad had asked her to lie and say he was. She stated that both Chad and Lori had called her separately on November 26th and asked her to tell the police that she had JJ. Now, the next day, the police got a search warrant, but when they got to Lori's house, she and Chad were gone, and Melanie, a different Melanie, not Melanie Gibb, Melanie Bordeaux, who was Lori's niece, who was married to Brandon Bordeaux, who divorced Brandon Bordeaux to move to Rexburg with Lori and marry somebody else. I know there's a lot of people to keep up with, but Melanie remembers Lori's niece, and she lived in the same condo building as Lori. When the police asked her where Chad and Lori were, Melanie claimed that the couple had left. Inside the condo, they found that most of the clothing had been taken, but JJ's medicine had been left behind. It had last been refilled in January of 2019, and it had not been filled since the family had arrived in Idaho. Now, East Idaho News has also done some really good work on the surveillance video from the Self Storage Plus in Rexburg, where Lori had rented a unit. They were able to improve the quality of the video so we could have a better idea of who came to that unit, who was with Lori, and what they were bringing in and out. It looked like during the month of October, Lori and sometimes one or two other men visited the self-storage unit 9 times and only 1 time in November. On October 1st, Lori rented that unit by herself, but the next day she came back with 1 man. And initially, it was thought that this man was Alex Cox, but with the new enhanced video, we can see that this man looks more like Chad Daybell due to his body size, height, and mannerisms. Now, going forward, when I refer to this person in this storage facility with Lori as Chad Daybell, it's alleged. This hasn't been proven that it was Chad Daybell. But when you see this video, you'll see that this looks like Chad Daybell. The way he walks, the height and compared with Lori, it looks like Chad Daybell. I think it's Chad Daybell. Allegedly, it's Chad Daybell. So on this day, Lori and Chad were at the unit for just 7 minutes, and this was October 2nd. They arrived at 2:25 p.m. She was driving. They exit the vehicle at 2:27 p.m. Chad, or the person we think is Chad, pulls out what looks to be a tire from the back of the car, and he rolls it into the storage unit. At 2:30, Lori and Chad carry in what looks to be a removable seat from a car. So when I say a removable seat, it's not like a car seat for your kid. It's like the entire back seat of the car. Some cars have third row seating or whatever, and you can take the seat in and out. Now they put both of these things in the storage unit and they leave at 2:32 p.m. The next day, which was October 3rd, Lori returns with another man, and this man is believed to be Alex Cox, her deceased brother, who wasn't obviously deceased at the time. They are there for only 2 minutes, and Alex helps her remove the tire and the car seat that she and Chad had placed there the day before. Now, we have seen this video before. I played it in a video before, and we originally thought that what Alex was carrying out was some sort of large tote or storage container, but we can clearly see now that it appears to be a removable car seat. But we know it's a different man because he's a different height than Chad, he's a different build than Chad, and he was also able to carry the tire and the car seat out by himself, where previously, the day before, Chad had needed Lori's help to bring the seat in, and he'd rolled the tire in instead of carried it. So we obviously have somebody who's a little bit younger here and possibly a little bit stronger. But why would they put these things in the storage unit on October 2nd and remove them the next day on October 3rd? Well, Brandon Bordeaux, who was Melanie Bordeaux's ex-husband, Lori's niece, Melanie Bordeaux, there was an attempt made on his life October 2nd in Gilbert, Arizona. And if you remember from our past videos about this case, he claims someone shot at him from the back window of a Jeep that was registered to Charles Vallow, who at that time was already dead, shot by Alex Cox. In order to be able to open the back window of a Jeep like this, you would have to remove that tire that's on the back. A Jeep like this would also have a removable back seat that you might want to take out. If you were posted up in the back seat of a Jeep trying to aim a gun at someone, it might make things a little bit easier for you if you didn't have that back seat there. So it's possible, allegedly, that Lori and Chad brought the tire and the seat to the storage unit on October 2nd, the same day that someone shot at Brandon from a Jeep, to get them off the car. And then the next day, Lori and Alex picked them back up again to get rid of them. Alex Cox would return to that storage unit alone 5 times in October, driving his silver truck, and then again on October 28th, Chad and Alex return without Lori, and they have the kids' bikes and the kids' picture albums and other items, and they're there for a total of 6 minutes. Now, the police do have the Jeep that's suspected to have been used in this attempted shooting on Brandon Bordeaux, but I'm unaware of whether they ever recovered the backseat or the tire. We also have new information coming from a child custody case between Brandon and Melanie Bordeaux. After Melanie left Brandon and her kids in Arizona and divorced him, she married a man named Ian Poluweski in Rexburg only weeks after her divorce was finalized. So it was a 5-month period between when Melanie left Brandon and her kids basically in the dark of night, moved to Rexburg where Lori Vallow lived, and met and married a man who seemed to be also a follower or a potential follower of Lori and Chad Daybell's. Now, in this custody case, along with some other documentation, a lot of stuff was revealed about what Lori and Chad might believe. A strange point system is outlined for advancing to eternity as a part of the Church of the 144,000 who will allegedly be saved at the second coming of Christ. Now, it seems that Lori had told Melanie that her husband Brandon had been possessed by a dark and demonic force, and he wasn't really her husband anymore, and that action had to be taken to urge his spirit to progress. Allegedly, Melanie believed or was told that Brandon had been possessed by a demon sometime after June of 2019, and she was informed through revelation or from Chad Daybell that something needed to happen to him. According to these documents, Lori also believed her own children, JJ and Tylee, had been taken over by these dark forces, and they'd become zombies, essentially. If you remember correctly, when Charles Vallow was still alive, He said that Lori had become strange. She'd been acting strange and saying strange things to him. One of the things she said to him was she kept calling him Nick. And he was like, "Who is Nick? My name's not Nick." And she said, "Nick's the name of the evil spirit who has, possessed you. You're not Charles anymore. You are Nick." And then Charles died. So Melanie was told that actions had to be taken to help her husband's spirit progress. And since Charles is no longer alive and they thought he was possessed by an evil spirit, we can only speculate what these actions were. And if Lori believed her children were also possessed, it doesn't take much of a leap to wonder if she may have thought certain actions had to be taken with the kids as well. So apparently Ian had an ex-wife who he'd already had children with. They were married, then they got divorced, and he married Melanie. She found a document on his computer which he had written, and it clarified what their church or their group or their cult believed. It detailed stats on which a person was ranked by his or her levels of vibration, libido, trustworthiness, and light-dark percentage. The zombies are believed to be human bodies that have had their original spirits forced out of them and have been possessed by either a demon, disembodied spirit, or a worm slug creature. So according to these documents, one of these three things can possess you and turn you into a zombie. A demon is thought to be the original third of the heavenly host who followed Lucifer. A disembodied spirit is thought to have been a once living human spirit who have chosen not to be reborn into another body. Or a worm slug creature is a thing that's controlled by Lucifer that enters the body to control the host. This is insane. And even better, according to this Ian guy in his writings, from what he'd heard from Lori and Chad, the only way a spirit can move forward and not be, just trapped in limbo while something else controls their body is when the current possessed body dies. And remember when Lori Vallow had told Charles Vallow she was a translated being? We didn't really know what that meant at the time, but this document seems to spell it out a little bit better for us. I still don't know what it is or what the heck she's talking about, but according to this document, a translated being cannot die, cannot reproduce, they do not need food or sleep, and they do not feel the sorrow of the world. Apparently, there's only 50 of these translated beings in the world, and 2 of them are Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. So allegedly, Lori and Chad don't need to eat, don't need to sleep, they can't ever die, they can't reproduce, and they feel no sorrow of the world, which, I'm feeling a little envious of that right now. I wish I was a translated being at this point, and I could just not worry about eating or sleeping and not feel any of the sorrow of the world. Also, it seems that the Church of the Firstborn and 144,000 is a higher organization in God's church in the truest form on earth. And they have multiple groups around the world who specialize in different things. And apparently Chad and Lori's group, the Rexburg group, specialized in music and healing. Now, Ian Polaski thought that these ideas were interesting, compelling, but he said, quote, "I felt like many of them were ripped straight out of a Dungeons and Dragons manual. Between the stats, accounts of dark and light weapons, and words spoken in blessings, it sounded like someone had created a tabletop RPG based on the Bible." Also, according to Melanie's new husband, she hadn't really been accepting of the idea that something needed to happen to her ex-husband, Brandon, since, she still loved him and she had children with him. But Ian had become concerned when Brandon had been shot at in October. He claims that after this happened, Melanie told him it was very possible that Chad and Lori could have instructed Alex to make an attempt on Brandon's life. According to Ian, Melanie was worried about JJ and Tylee, worried that Alex Cox had been instructed to do the same for them. Melanie had told Ian that Alex would be capable of something like that. If anybody was capable of it, it would be Alex Cox. He had great faith, and he never wavered in his trust of the Lord. No task would be too difficult or too great for him. Ian Polaski said that it was at this time he began to panic, and he wrote, "At this point, I became worried. But I told myself there's no way I just married into a situation so sinister. I spent the next 2 days trying to justify my actions and reassure myself that everything was fine, but I couldn't get to that point." When Ian's ex-wife Natalie found these writings and documents on his computer, she went to the police afraid for her own children, who she shared with Ian. And Ian went with Natalie, saying he would cooperate with the police fully and tell them everything he knew. He'd also been instructed to record phone conversations with Chad and Lori, but he claimed to have never recorded anything of substance. So this is a situation that's completely gone out of control, and I have to wonder if Lori Vallow is sitting in her jail cell right now, aware of what's happening in the world and thinking that everything that's happening somehow justifies or validates what she's been saying, the second coming, the world's ending, plague descends upon humanity. Is she over here like, told you so? Is she using the current situation of the world to bolster her faith that she's been right the whole time? At this point, I believe Lori Vallow is mentally ill. But then we have to ask the question of why Chad is either spearheading this or going along with her if she is a mentally unstable person. In my opinion, I don't think that there is any possible way that a person who has a brain, who has intelligence inside of them, can literally look at their mission statement or whatever it is that they believe about these zombies and possession and having to kill the body in order for the spirit to progress to the next world. You can't believe that stuff. You cannot sit here and say, suddenly all these people around me have turned into zombies. My ex-husband, my kids, my niece's ex-husband, they're zombies and we have to do something about them because the ones that we really love, the people we love, they're not in their body anymore. They've been pressed out or pushed out and they're now trapped in this horrible place, this limbo place, and we have to kill the bodies that the evil spirits now are in possession of in order for our actual loved ones to progress. You cannot believe that. You can't believe that. And if you act on it, you are truly mentally ill. But how are all of these people mentally ill? Is Lori Vallow just that convincing, or is it Chad Daybell the one who is convincing and manipulative? I guess I can sit here easily and say, this is crazy. How could anybody believe this? But then I have to think about all the many times that people have been in cults and believed things that you and I were like, that's insane. How did they believe that? Look at the Manson family. Charles Manson had his followers believing that once the end of the world came, they would all go into a hole in the ground and they would live in the hole in the ground forever and develop fairy wings. And then they would fly out when everything was, in dust and take over and rule the world. And then these people believed him. Some of the Manson girls claimed that they could feel the buds on their back where their angel wings or fairy wings were starting to grow. You also have the Heaven's Gate group. I've done videos on both of these cults and these groups. And they believed that when the Hale-Bopp comet came by the Earth, there was going to be a spaceship, and they had to end their lives and leave behind their skins or their physical bodies, their physical vehicles, so that they could get on that spaceship and go to a different planet where they would have whatever body they wanted and look any way they wanted. They believed this stuff enough to take their own lives so that they could all get there together. But the main difference between Heaven's Gate and the Manson family is Charles Manson and T and Doe for Heaven's Gate. They had their people essentially isolated. They put them all together, but they kept them away from the outside world and regular people who weren't a part of their group. And they did that specifically so that you could basically tell them anything and they would never have anybody out there who would discount or dispute what they were hearing. And if you're isolated long enough and you keep hearing the same things from the same people, you're eventually going to believe that because that is your reality. That's all you know, and there's nobody else to tell you otherwise. In this situation, it doesn't appear that Lori and Chad or Melanie or her husband or Alex Cox, that they have been isolated to the point where they wouldn't be able to hear what the outside world thought about all of this, or talk to other people and get their opinions on what they're being told by Chad and Lori so that the other people can be like, that's kind of crazy, don't you think? So they have these outside voices. They're able to interact with people who are not a part of their group or not a part of their belief system. They're able to read books, read newspapers, look at the internet, hear what people are saying about this very public group at this point. So that does lead me to wonder, how would you believe that your loved ones, your husband, your children have been invaded by some nefarious spirits or worms. And now you have to kill them in order for them to be saved. And at this point, we still don't know where JJ and Tylee are. Some people believe that Lori has them hidden away with other members of this group. There has to be more people involved in this group that we don't know about. I mean, just statistically, I have to believe that there are other people out there that we don't know about. And they're probably not really willing to step forward right now and be like, yeah, I'm part of the 144,000 firstborn church of Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. They're not going to come forward right now because there's a lot of bad publicity around their group. But a lot of people do believe that these kids are hidden away somewhere. But with everything that's going on in the world right now, it would really be helpful if we knew where they were and that they were safe. And personally, I don't believe any longer that is the case. I don't believe that JJ and Tylee are alive any longer. I've been going back and forth, having hope or trying to have hope that they have survived this and that they're just hidden away somewhere. But after learning this, that they believe if you're possessed by this evil spirit or worm or zombie person, whatever, if you're possessed by this thing or the spirit, the only way to help you is to kill you. Now that I know that, I have very little hope that these two children are still alive. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about, the ongoing Lori Vallow saga that she just continues to perpetuate instead of just opening her mouth and telling us what happened. JJ's grandparents, the world, everybody who has been watching with bated breath to see where JJ and Tylee are. We're never going to get any closure. We're never going to get a peace of mind unless she opens her mouth and tells us where they are or what happened to them. And I don't think she's going to do that because everything that's going on right now is probably just reinforcing her belief that the world is coming to an end. I'm also working on a Coffee and Crime Time on the Gannon Stauch updates. As you may or may not know, they found remains that they believe belong to Gannon last week. I have been looking into everything, but there's a lot of rumors and there's a lot of speculation going on about this case right now. So I'm just trying to, I'm studying maps. I'm looking at how long it would take T. Stauch to get from one place to the other. I'm trying to confirm whether or not she was at the Daytona 500. There's a lot of stuff that is speculation and gossip and rumor, but just hasn't been proven or supported yet. So I am working my way through that, but I do want to give you guys the most up-to-date, but also well-researched and well-supported information, because when a lot of these rumors go around, it kind of does more harm than good, especially considering that T. Stauch is now going to be going to trial, most likely. I don't think that she'll confess. Hopefully they don't offer her a deal. That would be awful. But they have a body now. Before, I think it was more likely that they would have offered her a deal because of the fact that they didn't have a body and it's hard to try a no-body murder case. But now they have a body, and I don't think she will confess. I think she'll just let it ride and hope for the best. She's such a narcissistic, horrible, crappy person that she'll just want to make people suffer for as long as possible. So there's definitely going to be a trial, and I don't want to put out anything into the world that could possibly taint a jury pool unless there's some kind of actual background to it, unless I can actually look and say where I found it or who the source was, etc. You guys get it. So I'm working on that, and I should have that out, this week or so. And I'm also working on a Quarantine's Favorites video. What have I been doing? What have I been reading? What have I been watching while I've been stuck here in quarantine? So look out for that. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to my Patreons who continue to support me and be there for me. And thank you to June's Journey for sponsoring this video. If you're interested in trying June's Journey, which I think you should, it's so much fun, go in the description box and click the link to download it for free. I feel like I just said length, not link. Did I say that? I'll see when I edit. Thank you guys so much for being here. Stay kind, stay beautiful, stay calm, stay safe, stay healthy, and I love you. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Well, the levee don't break now, and the bottle's going straight down, and that river runs deep. Cemetery, they're coming back from the grave, calling out my name, better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly.